Elections lie at the heart and soul of the Indian democracy. It's the job of the poll personnel to make sure that this process maintains the required secrecy and absolute sanctity of procedures and arrangements. Meet Ravi Kumar. He has been appointed as a presiding officer. The task of the poll personnel begins much before the actual polls and continues even after polling is closed. We will follow his journey right from the beginning and understand his responsibilities and duties at various stages of the poll process. Pre-poll preparations on appointment. To start with, Ravi needs to acquaint himself with the training schedule, election laws, rules and procedures, as well as his right to vote while on election duty. He needs to attend all 3 or more scheduled training sessions to understand his role. He now knows that a typical polling party consists of 1 presiding officer and 3 polling officials. For simultaneous elections for Legislative Assembly and the House of the People, the number of polling officials becomes 5. He needs to read all important pamphlets and booklets. Polling personnel are selected and deputed using the process of randomization. At the first stage, polling personnel get selected from a database of qualified people. The identity of the assembly constituency or AC is not disclosed, but the selected officer gets to know the venue and time of training and whether he is a polling officer, PO, or the presiding officer, PRO. This was the letter that Ravi got. Polling parties are formed at the second stage of randomization, which happens 6 or 7 days before the polls. AC gets revealed at this stage, but the actual polling station or PS is still not known. This stage requires the presence of observers. The third stage of randomization happens close to the dispersal of the polling parties, where they are randomly allocated polling stations. Once again, under the watchful eyes of an observer. Dispatch of polling parties and collection of polling material. The EVM. At least a day before the polls, collect the polling materials. Ravi and his team have been issued photo identity cards. The most important deliverable is, of course, the electronic voting machine, or the EVM. This has 2 main units, the ballot unit and the control unit. The EVM might also have a VVPAT, or Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. This is used to further enhance transparency and verifiability by the voter. Ravi has also checked the tags attached to the EVM carrying case to ensure that it is meant for his designated polling station. He also ensures that it is properly sealed. At the time of taking delivery, the PRO has to check whether the EVM is functional. That the batteries are working fine, and check the clock of the EVM. If there are any faults in the EVM or it is not for his polling station, it should be replaced immediately by reporting the matter to Sector Magistrate or Returning Officer. It's useful for the PRO to know a few do's and don'ts about the machine. EVM do's and don'ts. Do not exert undue pressure on the latches, hinges, etc. Do not force open the covers and doors of any section. Do not keep the EVM near heaters or other hot objects. Do not allow molten wax or sealing wax to fall on the EVM. Do not remove the power pack from the control unit. Do not remove the outer paper seal until the CU is on the counting table. Do not force the cable connector in the reverse direction. Do not pull the interconnecting cable without pressing the spring-type clip on the hood of the connector. The electoral roll. The marked copy of the electoral roll is the most important polling document for a PRO and his team. Ravi is handed over 3 copies. In case of simultaneous polls, that's assembly and parliamentary elections together, this will be 5 copies. They are called marked copies of the electoral roll because in this copy, the names of the PB, CSV and EDC list voters are clearly marked. Also, collect the list of proxy voters, if any. While collecting the marked copies, Ravi, the PRO, makes sure they are complete and identical. It is also to be checked that the names are serially numbered, the printed serial numbers of the voters are not corrected with ink or otherwise, no new numbers are substituted, and deletions are clearly marked. Also, Ravi needs to ensure that the marked copies of electoral roll should have a certificate signed by RO or ARO in the prescribed format. Other material. Ravi takes delivery of 20 ballot papers to be used as tendered ballot papers and makes sure they are of his polling station. He collects the ASD list, that is, the list of absent, shifted and dead voters. He also checks whether he has the photocopies of the specimen signatures of the contesting candidates and their election agents. There's a lot more his team needs to collect in terms of election materials. List of polling materials. Register of voters, Form 17A, 1 book. Voter slips, 1,600. Working copies of electoral roll. List of classified service voters, or CSV, if any. Ballot papers for tendered votes, 20. 2 indelible ink vials of 10 cc each. Address tag for CU, 5 numbers. Address tag for BU, 4 numbers. Special tag, 3 numbers. Green paper seals for EVM, 4 numbers. Outer paper strip seal, 3 numbers. Rubber stamp arrow cross mark, 1 number. And stamp pad, purple color, 1 number. Metal seal for presiding officer, 1 number. Presiding officer's diary, 1 number. And distinguishing mark, rubber stamp, 1 number. Ravi is right now checking if he has all the requisite statutory and non-statutory forms required. These forms are extremely important for a smooth and streamlined polling process. List of forms. Contesting candidates, Form 7A, 2 numbers. Challenged votes, Form 14, 2 numbers. Blind and infirm voters, Form 14A, 2 numbers. List of tendered votes, Form 17B, 2 numbers. Account of votes recorded, Form 17C, 10 numbers. Record of paper seals used, 2 numbers. Receipt book for deposit of challenged votes fee, 1 book. Letter to SHO, 4 numbers. Declaration by the presiding officer before the commencement of poll and the end of poll, Part 1 to 4, 2 sets. Declaration by elector about his age, 2 numbers. List of electors who voted after giving declaration or refused to give declaration, 10 numbers. Declaration by the companion of blind and infirm voters, 10 numbers. Passes for polling agents, 2 for each candidate. Visit sheet, 2 numbers. Format for presiding officer's additional 16-point report to be submitted to the constituency observer or the RO. Besides the forms, Ravi will also be required to collect and carry to the poll booth a number of corresponding envelopes. List of envelopes. For smaller envelopes or statutory covers, SE8, 1 number. For marked copy of electoral rolls, SE8, 1 number. For other copies of electoral rolls, SE8, 1 number. For tendered ballot paper and tendered voters list, 1 number. For declaration by the presiding officer before the commencement of poll and the end of poll, SE7, 1 number. For account of votes recorded, SE5, 1 number. For list of challenged votes, SE5, 1 number. For unused and damaged paper seals, SE5, 1 number. For appointment letters of polling agents, SE6, 1 number. For list of blind and infirm voters, SE5, 1 number. For presiding officer's diary, SE6, 1 number. For election duty certificate, SE5, 1 number. For receipt book and cash forfeited, SE6, 1 number. For declaration of companions, SE5, 1 number. Smaller envelopes for other purposes, SE7, 1 number. For register of voters, 17A, containing signatures of voters, SE8, 1 number. Cover for PRO's brief record under Rule 40, SE6, 1 number. Plain envelopes, SE7, 2 numbers and SE8, 3 numbers. For unused ballot papers, SE7, 5 numbers. For any other paper that RO has decided to keep in sealed cover, 1 number. Cover for unused and damaged special tag, SE7, 1 number. Cover for unused and damaged strip seal, SE7, 1 number. There's a sizable amount of stationery to be collected as well. Ravi and his team checks them all. List of stationery. Ordinary pencil, 1 number. Ball pens, 3 blue and 1 red. Blank paper, 8 sheets. Pins, 25 pieces. Matchbox, 1 number. Sealing wax, 6 sticks. Material for voting compartment, 2 plus 2 total 4 sets. Gum paste, 1 bottle. Blade, 1 number. Candles, 4 sticks. Thin twine thread, 20 meters. Metal ruler, 1 piece. Carbon paper, 3 sheets. Rag for removing oil etc., 3 pieces. Packing paper, 2 sheets. Cup, empty tin, plastic box for holding indelible ink bottle, 1 number. Drawing pins, 24 pieces. Rubber bands, 20 pieces. Sellotape, 1 piece. And checklist, 2 numbers. Transport arrangements for the team have been made. They are now ready and eager to go. Setting up the polling station. It's the day of the poll. Ravi and his team, along with the security staff attached to them, had reached the polling station a day before. All poll personnel are required to be settled in their polling stations well in advance of and at least 2 hours before commencement of polls. Preferably, they should reach their polling station a day before and stay overnight. Transport arrangements are made accordingly. Do not open the EVM, which is to be operated only before the scheduled hour. If any polling officer is absent, the PRO has the authority to appoint anyone of his choice to take his place and inform the district election officer. The person should not be an active worker for any candidate. Inspect the polling station. It should be ensured without fail that the voting process is transparent and the secrecy of voting is not violated. If necessary, make the modifications to ensure there is enough space for voters to wait. There are separate waiting areas for men and women. There are separate entrance and exit for voters. if there is one door, use bamboo dividers in the middle of the doorway. Make sure that the polling station is sufficiently lighted. Make sure that there is an easy flow of voters from entry to exit. The polling agents should be seated in a way that they could see the entire operation, the entire movement of the elector. But while doing this, ensure that they cannot see the actual recording of votes by the voter. The voting compartment should be placed away from the window or door to maintain secrecy. The voting compartment should be made preferably out of flex board and of the dimension 23 inches by 23 inches by 23 inches. However, voting compartments made of cardboard, if available since before, in good condition, may also be used. The voting compartment should be at a sufficient distance from the table where the control unit shall be kept. The cable connecting the BU to the CU should not obstruct the movement of the voters, but the entire length of the cable should be visible. In case it's a simultaneous voting for assembly as well as parliamentary elections, separate EVMs need to be kept in separate voting compartments, clearly marked with bold letters. A typical layout for a single election could be like this. The poll team removes photos of political leaders or symbols of any political party or slogans till the polls are over. Also, no cooking or lighting of fire is allowed in the polling station. Only a candle may be lighted when required for sealing poll material or EVM. Arrangements for proper illumination, however, must be ensured. Ravi personally displays the mandatory notices or signboards outside the polling station. A notice specifying the polling area and the particulars of electors. A copy of the list of contesting candidates as in Form 7A. Also, attach their election symbols. Basic Minimum Facilities. The Basic Minimum Facilities, or BMF, to be provided at each polling station are provision of ramp, provision of drinking water, adequate furniture, proper lighting, help desk, proper signage, toilet, shade for voters in queue. Who can enter the polling station? The presiding officer can allow only the following persons into the polling station: the electors, polling officers, each contesting candidate, one election agent or polling agent of each candidate at a time, persons authorized by the Election Commission to enter the polling station with authority letters, public servants on duty, child in arms accompanying an elector, a person accompanying a blind or an infirm voter who cannot move or vote without help. Such are the persons for the purpose of identifying voters or assisting the elector in taking the poll. Police and security personnel cannot enter unless called by the PRO. Security arrangements at polling station. The security arrangements at the polling station, as we already know, are also under the jurisdiction of the PRO. The Central Police Force, or CPF, where deployed, would be primarily responsible for protecting the polling stations and regulating entry inside the polling stations. They can enter the polling booth only if the PRO needs their services. Also ensure that the deployed security force has arrived in due time before commencement of poll. The CPF Jawan or security personnel shall stand at the door of the polling station and observe the activities inside the polling station. As said before, the security personnel will not enter into the polling station. The local state police is responsible for maintenance of general law and order in the catchment area, as well as inside and outside of the polling premises. Under no circumstances the local state police can replace the CPF if deployed. The 100 and 200 meter signage is also critical. It's important for the PRO to ensure that the building and the area around it, up to 100 meters, should be under his absolute control, including the security arrangements. Also, no canvassing is allowed within 100 meters of the booth. Ravi observes that one of the candidates has set up an election booth within 200 meters of the polling station. According to Election Commission's instructions, this is not permissible. So, the security personnel removed the booth beyond 200 meters. Conducting mock poll. Ravi now checks the appointment letters and specimen signatures of the polling agents. Ravi is conducting mock poll. 1 hour before actual polling begins, at least 50 votes will be cast during the mock poll. In case the VVPAT is used, mock poll is to be carried out on it also as a part of the EVM. Ask the polling agents to vote. If the polling agents are not present, wait for 20 minutes and then the PRO will cast votes for each candidate in presence of micro-observer or sector officer and the others present at the polling station. In case polling agents turn up in between, the PRO shall not stop the ongoing mock poll or restart it afresh. Mock poll is a mandatory step and PRO has to give a certificate to this effect. At this point, also reconfirm the functioning of the CU clock and battery levels. Before beginning the mock poll, first press the clear button and then the total button to show to the polling agents that there are no votes polled in the EVM since before. Then, conduct the mock poll by pressing buttons of each candidate and of Nota or the BU. After each candidate's button has been pressed nearly equal number of times, press the close button. Then, press the ballot button to show that no votes can be polled after pressing of the close button. Then, press Result button and show the agents the candidate-wise result of the mock poll. Once they are satisfied, clear the mock poll data from the EVM. After this, prepare the mock poll certificate and get it signed by the polling agents and observers. The CU is working fine. It now needs to be properly sealed and tagged by the presiding officer. The ballot unit or BU is already sealed at RO's level. Do not forget to clear the mock poll result and make a record to that effect in the mock poll certificate. After clearing the mock poll data, seal the CU using the prescribed seals and tags and make it ready for the actual polls. Insert the green paper seal in the frames provided for both results. Close the results section inner compartment door with the green paper seal protruding outside. Seal the results section inner compartment. Fix the special tag in a manner that the close button is visible. Close the results section door while ensuring that the green paper seal protrudes outside. Now, seal the door of the results section outer compartment using the address tag. Now, fix the outer paper strip seal, keeping the strip seal with pre-gummed portion A near the base of the green paper seal. Remove the wax paper covering A and paste the lower layer of the green paper seal. Remove B and paste it above its upper layer. After pasting B, the pre-gummed portion C will be on top. Remove the wax paper over C. Press both the layers of green paper seal onto C. Now take the strip seal round the control unit from left side just below the close button window. Bring the other end of the strip seal from right side to the top. Now the pre-gummed portion D is on top. Remove its wax paper and paste it on top of the green paper seal. The control unit is now ready for the actual poll. Allow agents to note down the serial number of outer paper strip seal and put their signature or distinguishing mark on this also. Also put your own signature on it. Just before the poll, the BLO of the polling area has arrived. He or she will be present during the poll with duplicate copies of voter slips issued 1 week before by the district administration. This is just in case the voter loses his voter slip or forgets to bring it. Polling should start in appointed hour. If not, Ravi needs to note down the reasons for delay in his presiding officer's diary. There are 3 declarations to be made by the PRO: before the poll, during the introduction of a new voting machine, and at the end of the poll. Ravi Kumar is now reading the first declaration aloud to all present and taking their signatures. Next, he will issue warning about secrecy of voting and then demonstrate marked copy of electoral roll and register of voters in Form 17A to polling agents. Now the polling booth is ready for the actual voting process. During polls, Ravi Kumar now announces that the poll would begin. The polling officers inside the booth have specified responsibilities. We follow a typical voter to understand the voting process and the typical responsibilities of the 3 polling officers. First polling officer, in charge of marked copy of roll, identification of voters. Second polling officer, application of indelible ink, recording the serial numbers of elector as per the electoral roll in the register of voters, Form 17A, in the sequence of voting. Third polling officer, collect voter slip and keep it safely. Check finger for indelible ink mark. Allows the voter to vote by activating the button on the control unit. In some polling stations, the Commission may also deploy micro-observers about whom we'll talk later in this film. During the poll, it's important to maintain regulated entry of voters. For instance, senior citizens, physically challenged electors, and women with babies in arms are to be given preference over others. Voters with speech and hearing impairment are also to be given special care. Ravi and his team are allowed to enter the voting compartment only if the ballot unit is not functioning properly, if the PRO feels that the voter is playing mischief or is taking unduly long time in the voting. The PRO will enter the voting compartment only in the presence of the polling agents. As a PRO, your job is to oversee and report faithfully the entire polling process. The greatest tool for this is the presiding officer's diary. Like Ravi, keep making relevant entries in the relevant columns of the diary at regular intervals and do not wait for the end of the polls to fill it up. Handling special situations. During the poll process at times, certain special situations may emerge. Challenged votes, tendered votes, blind and infirm voters, proxy voters, voter without index finger, voter without fingers in both hands, underage voters, violation of secrecy, Z plus category electors, voters or SPG protectee, EDC and postal ballot. Now let's have a look at such special situation. Challenged votes. First of all, what to do in case a voter's identity is challenged? Let's start with what can be overlooked. Provided the identity of the voter is established, discrepancies in name, sex, age, address, relationship as recorded in the e-roll or EPIC may be ignored. Similarly, discrepancy in the EPIC number mentioned in the e-roll may be ignored. An elector with photo identity card of another assembly constituency should be allowed, provided his name is there in the electoral roll of the polling station. The polling agents can also challenge the identity of the voter. He has to submit 2 rupees for each such challenge, for which he is to be given a receipt. For each such challenge, you need to conduct a step-by-step inquiry. Warn the person challenged about the penalty for impersonation. Enter his name in the list of challenged voters in Form 14. Ask him to sign or affix his thumb impression. If he refuses, do not allow him to vote. Ask the challenger to produce substantiate evidence. If he does not produce prima facie evidence, disallow his challenge. If he can produce evidence, ask the voter to rebut his challenge. If the voter can prove his identity, allow him to vote. If he fails, hold the challenge proved. Do not allow him to vote and hand him over to the police. You can also take support of local people if you need to ascertain facts. Return the challenge fee of 2 rupees to the challenger. In case you find that the challenge was not done in good faith, forfeit the amount. Also, enter the word "forfeited" in column 10 of Form 14 and the relevant counterfoil in the receipt book. The presiding officer has to prepare a list of such challenged voters. Tendered votes. The tendered ballot papers are meant for voters whose identity has been established through verification of documents, but somebody has already voted in his name. You have at your disposal 20 ballot papers for casting of tendered votes. Before giving it to the voter, write "tendered ballot paper" on the back, just in case they are not already stamped as such. In Form 17B, take the elector's signature and thumb impression and maintain records of all tendered ballots issued. Ravi oversees the process of recording votes on tendered ballots. He gives the voter an inked arrow cross marked rubber stamp with which he marks his candidate of choice. The voter then folds the paper and hands it over to Ravi. Here too, in case of blindness or infirmity, companions are allowed. Ravi keeps all such votes and their list in the Form 17B in their schedule cover, already provided for the purpose. Blind and infirm voter. In case of voting by blind and infirm voters, allow voting with the help of a companion if needed by the voter. This companion should not be less than 18 years of age, and before voting needs to give a declaration on secrecy of vote and that he has not acted as companion of any other elector at any polling station on this poll day. On Ravi Kumar's part, he needs to keep a record of all such cases in Form 14A. And yes, None of the polling staff can act as a companion to record vote on his behalf. Infirm literate person should put signature by writing name. Voters who are illiterate but can use their hand should give thumb impression. In case of infirm voters who cannot use either of their hands, the companion should sign or put thumb impression. A note should be made against each such entry in the remarks column of the register of voters that signature or thumb impression is of the companion. The last 4 digits of the identification document should be written in the remark column of Form 17A. Voter without index finger on left hand. In the case of a voter without the index finger of the left hand, the indelible ink shall be applied on the middle finger of his left hand. In case more fingers are missing, the sequence in which indelible ink can be applied is: further, if he does not have any finger on his left hand, the ink should be applied on right hand forefinger, and if he has no right hand forefinger, on any other finger which he has on his right hand starting with his forefinger. If he has no finger on either hand, ink should be applied on such extremity or stumps of his left or right as he possesses. Underage voters. In case of a person whom Ravi considers much below the qualifying age, he will obtain a declaration as an annexure 10 from that elector about his age on the first day of January of the year with reference to which the existing electoral roll of the constituency has been prepared or revised. Before obtaining the declaration from such elector, he should inform the elector the penal provision in Section 31 of the Representation of the People Act 1950 for false declaration. Ravi has to prepare a list of such voters from whom he has obtained such declarations in Part 1 of Annexure 11. He should also maintain a list in Part 2 of the said Annexure 11 of those voters who refuse to give the aforesaid declaration and go away without casting their votes. Proxy votes. Voting by proxy is another situation. Classified Service Voters, or CSVs, are allowed to vote through a proxy appointed by them beforehand. You will have the list of proxy voters, if any, from the RO. The proxy voter will follow the same procedure as other voters with a few minor differences. The serial number of the CSV is to be entered in the second column of Form 17A. During casting of vote as a proxy voter of a CSV, the indelible ink shall be applied on the middle finger of the proxy voter, irrespective of whether or not he or she has cast his or her own vote at his or her polling station. This way, his or her left-hand index finger remains available for application of indelible ink when he or she casts his or her own vote. Electors, voters with Z+ security or SPG protectees. Security personnel attached to any person are not allowed to enter the polling station except in case a person covered under Z+ security or an SPG protectee, in which case person in plain clothes and with concealed weapon may be allowed to accompany the vote. vote in favor of any candidate. The provision of nota introduced in compliance of the recent Honorable Supreme Court order ensures that there is secrecy of even not to vote. The PRO as well as other officers on election duty can cast their votes through postal ballot or election duty certificate (EDC). Public servants on election duty are generally not assigned polling duties in their home constituencies. In case they are not posted within the constituency where they are registered as voters, they need to use postal ballots for casting their votes. The process of postal balloting is facilitated for poll personnel in advance of the poll day by the returning officer. Many a times for Lok Sabha elections and in some cases during assembly elections, officials may be put on election duty in the same constituency in which they are registered as voters. These personnel cast their votes using election duty certificates. An official who is deployed in a particular polling station within his constituency can cast his vote at that polling station using the EDC issued to him. An official not deployed at a specific polling station but doing election work within his constituency on the poll day, or one whose duty has been cancelled subsequent to issuance of EDC to him, can cast his or her vote at any polling station within his or her constituency other than the one at which he or she is enrolled using EDC issued to him or her. The PRO has to collect the EDC issued to such a voter before allowing him or her to cast his or her vote. He also needs to make corresponding entries in Form 17A, 17C and Presiding Officer's Diary. Adjournment or stoppage of polls. As a presiding officer, Ravi Kumar is empowered to adjourn the poll, but only under special conditions. Non-arrival of the polling party at the polling station due to any difficulty. A natural calamity like flood, heavy snowfall or a severe storm, etc. Non-receipt or damage to essential poll materials like voting machine, authentic electoral roll copy, etc. Severe disturbance of peace at the polling station, like riots or any attempt of open violence that the police can't control. The Commission stipulates that if the polling fails to start within 2 hours of scheduled time, the polling at the station automatically stands adjourned. In case the poll at your polling station stands adjourned, you need to report the full facts immediately to the returning officer. Also inform everyone present that a subsequent date of adjourned poll will be notified by the Election Commission. The EVM unit and all the election papers should be sealed and secured in the presence of polling agents, as if the poll has ended in a normal way. During the completion of the adjourned poll at a later date, only those voters will be allowed to vote who have not voted before the poll was adjourned. The RO will provide the PO with the same marked electoral roll and the register of voters used in the original poll and a new voting machine. All the processes followed will correspond to the original poll process. Election declared void. The Election Commission, on its part, can declare an election as void and direct a fresh poll. This happens in case any voting machine has been unlawfully taken away, EVM has been accidentally or intentionally destroyed, lost, damaged or tampered with so that the result of that PS cannot be determined. The EVM develops a technical error or any other error that might vitiate the voting process in case of booth capturing. As a presiding officer, if you are sure that booth capturing is taking place, you are expected to immediately push the close button in the control unit of the voting machine and call the police. Once the close button gets pressed, the EVM will no longer record any further votes. Ravi has to inform the RO immediately about this, who will report the same to the Election Commission. The EC, depending on circumstances, either decides to have an adjourned poll if it feels that the voting till that stage was not vitiated, or can order a fresh poll. When the EC orders a fresh poll, it has to be taken in the same manner as in the original poll. All electors will be entitled to vote again, with only one difference. In the case of a fresh poll, the left hand middle fingers of the voters will be marked with indelible ink. Additional arrangements at certain polling stations, micro-observers, etc. Your polling station is likely to have some additional arrangements also, such as use of a video or a still camera, webcasting, or deployment of a micro-observer. We shall briefly talk about them. Micro-observers, a Government of India or a central public sector undertaking employee not below Group C can be deployed as a micro-observer at a polling station location. Micro-observers, where deployed, report to the general observers of the Election Commission in the constituency, are trained by them in advance and also supervised by them. A micro-observer is required to obtain his appointment letter, I-card, etc. from the DEO and to reach the dispatch center on his own for further movement to the polling station with the polling team. He reaches the PS at least 1 hour before commencement of poll or on the previous day, depending on the brief and the directions he receives. He would return to the receipt center also with the polling team. He can exercise his franchise using postal ballot or EDC like any other person on poll duty. When posted at a location which has more than one polling station, he is responsible for all the polling stations at that location and would divide his time between all these PSs and keep visiting them frequently, making his availability known to the polling agents. He has a number of responsibilities and undertakes a range of tasks, including attending trainings and briefing to understand the guidelines and instructions of the Commission and to carefully take note of the directions given by the observer. Taking the details of the communication plan from the RO, assessing the preparedness of the PS for the poll. This would include checking on the presence of the various members of the polling party and security personnel at the polling station, the availability of various material and facility there, and timely completion of all arrangements and preparations for the poll. To be present at the time of mock poll, to note down the time and other details of mock poll. To observe proper deletion of mock poll data from the EVM before commencement of actual poll and proper filling up of mock poll certificate. To keep an eye on the presence of candidates' agents, etc. in the PS both during mock poll as well as actual poll. To check whether more than one polling agent of one candidate is present inside the polling station at any time. To observe whether the entry pass system for agents is being followed or not. To observe whether the voters were identified by verifying EPIC or other permitted documents before being permitted to vote. Observing proper entry of identification document particulars in the Register of Voters Form 17A. To observe whether voting compartment was properly placed to ensure secrecy of voting. Observing whether the presiding officer or polling officer went towards the voting compartment to influence voting or to give any undue instructions to the voters. Observing whether due care was taken in accordance with the ECI guidelines before allowing any voters whose names appear in the ASD list to vote. To observe whether the polling booth has been visited by sector officer or not. To observe whether the total of votes in the EVM is compared on hourly basis with that of Form 17A. To check whether polling agents were allowed to note down the serial numbers of the ballot unit and control unit and green paper seal. To check whether the list of voters issued with postal ballots or EDCs are available with the presiding officer and polling agents. To observe whether any unauthorized person was inside the polling station at any point of time. To observe whether marking of indelible ink on left forefinger of voter was done properly. To check whether the PRO is duly keeping record of events in the PS as required. Checking whether sealing of voting machine and other material was done according to ECI instructions. To note down whether copies of accounts of votes recorded in Form 17C have been given to the polling agents at the end of poll. Keeping track of complaints, if any, at the PS by the candidate's agents or anybody else, while understanding the nature and seriousness of such complaints. Bringing to the notice of the general observer at the earliest possible if he feels that the poll is being vitiated for any reason at any time. After the poll, reporting back to the general observer at the collection center and handing over the envelope containing his report to him. Any other responsibilities as may be entrusted to him by the Commission or by the observer. Remember, in no situation a micro-observer will act as a presiding officer or a polling officer. His task is to observe that the election process is free and fair and that there is no vitiation of poll. A micro-observer can be deployed for more than one phase of polling also. When deployed at a multiple PS location, he shall be in charge of all PSs at that location unless otherwise directed. He works under supervision of the general observer of the Commission in the constituency and gives his report in the prescribed format in sealed cover to him at the receipt center. A micro-observer must report any special incident to the general observer at the earliest using the available modes of communication. The micro-observer needs to remain present at the time of post-poll scrutiny to provide inputs to the general observer whenever needed. His report should also be taken into consideration during such scrutiny. The PROs and poll personnel should extend all required cooperation to micro-observers for discharge of their assigned duties. Format for report of micro-observers. Whether mock poll has been conducted in presence of micro-observers. Whether data of mock poll from the ballot unit was cleared and the EVM count was set to 0 after the mock poll and before the beginning of the actual poll. How many polling agents and of which political party were present during the mock poll? Whether more than one polling agent from the same political party were present inside the polling station at any time. Whether polling agents were allowed to note the serial numbers of balloting unit and control unit and green paper seal. Whether the entry pass system was enforced properly. Whether any unauthorized person was inside the polling station at any point of time. Whether marking of indelible ink on left forefinger was done properly. Whether the identification document particulars were being filled up meticulously in Register of Voters Form 17A. Whether the list of votes issued with postal ballot was available with the presiding officer and polling agents. Did any person already issued postal ballot appear to vote again in person? Whether any person cast a vote on the basis of EDC. Whether events are recorded from time to time as and when they occur in the presiding officer diary. Whether the presiding officer or polling officer was going towards voting compartment or giving any undue instructions to the voters. Whether the scrutiny of voters in the absentee, shifted and duplicate list was done meticulously by the presiding officers in accordance with ECI guidelines. Whether copies of accounts of votes recorded in Form 17C have been given to the polling agents. Whether voting compartment was properly placed to ensure secrecy of voting. Whether sealing of voting machine was done according to instructions. Whether any complaint by polling agent, election agent, or any political party was received. If yes, its substance. Any other incident or issue that you would like to highlight. This annexure should be signed by the micro-observer giving his full name, designation, phone number, date and time. Use of still and video cameras on poll day at polling stations. A video or a still camera may be used at your polling station. Webcasting may also be done using such cameras. If a camera is to be used at your polling station, additional personnel may be deployed at your PS for operating it. Cameras shall be placed in such a manner that they can record the voters in the queue and the proceeding in the polling station, including the process of identification of voters, application of indelible ink, etc. It must be ensured that the secrecy of voting is not violated by the camera in any manner. What should be recorded by the camera? The videographer, photographer shall make sure that all important events such as mock poll, sealing of EVMs, signing by polling agents on the seals of EVMs, etc. are properly recorded. Any untoward incident at the polling station must also be recorded. Especially the following must be recorded: attempts of intimidation of voters, attempts of inducement or bribing of voters, canvassing within 100 meters of polling stations, positioning of voting compartment, presence of polling agents, mock poll, clearing of mock poll, sealing of EVMs, process of identification of voters, voters in queues, the length of queue at the time fixed for close of poll, any dispute of any nature at the polling station, visit by sector officers, observers and other electoral functionaries or any important person including the candidates, replacement of EVM if any incident at the polling stations. All video and photography should be done with date and time recording so that the real time and date can be verified. Please note, the above list is illustrative and not exhaustive. Also learn about what arrangements are being put in place in your polling station in case webcasting or live web streaming of happenings in your PS is planned to be done by the DEO. Close of poll. It's been a day of hard and meaningful work for Ravi Kumar and his team. Now the polling process is at the scheduled of closure. At the time fixed for closure, distribute voter slips signed by PRO to all existing electors in the queue in a reverse order, which means the last person in the queue gets serial number 1. Polling has to continue till all these slip holders cast their votes. The last elector casts his vote. It's time now for Ravi Kumar to formally declare the polls closed. At the close of poll, the close button on the control unit of the EVM needs to be pressed, the total votes polled in the EVM noted, refix the close button cap, open the bottom compartment and switch off power. Disconnect the cable. Now pack the CU and BU in their carrying cases. Seal the cases and fix address tags. Ravi will now prepare the account of votes in Part 1 of Form 17C in duplicate. The total votes recorded in the EVM should match the total number of votes as entered in the Register of Voters Form 17A minus the cumulative number of voters not allowed to vote. Also carefully note that in Form 17C, the serial numbers and the total number of green paper seals supplied to you and used at the polling station are to be recorded. Remember to put the details of green paper seals and not of the outer paper strip seals with ABCD in Form 17C. However, in the PRO diary, similar details are to be filled for both green paper seals as well as the outer paper strip seal with ABCD. In the PRO diary, such details are also to be filled for the special tag, which has a hole to fit around the close button and is used for sealing the inner compartment of the results section. You have to be very careful to correctly prepare the account of votes and of various seals etc. in Form 17C and in the PRO diary in view of their critical importance in the process of election. After the close of poll, all the papers and materials relating to the poll are required to be put in their respective packets. PRO should allow candidates or their election or polling agents to affix signatures and seals on the envelopes or packets containing the following if they want: copies of electoral roll, Register of Voters Form 17A, voter slips, used tender ballot papers and list of tendered votes in 17B, unused tendered ballot papers, list of challenged votes, unused and damaged paper seals if any, appointment letters of polling agents, any other papers that RO has declared to be kept in sealed packets. The following packets are to be deposited with the EVM at the collection center: the account of votes recorded and paper seals, Form 17C. The declarations by the presiding officer before the poll, during the poll, and after close of poll. The presiding officer's diary. The visit sheet and the 16-point report for observer and RO. Besides these, 4 more packets have to be prepared. The first packet will be superscribed as statutory covers and will contain the sealed cover containing marked copies of electoral roll, the sealed cover containing Register of Voters Form 17A, the sealed cover containing voter slips, the sealed cover containing unused tendered ballot papers, the sealed cover containing used tendered ballot papers and list of tendered votes in 17B. Even if a statement or record put in any cover is nil, then a slip noting on it that such statement or record is nil should be put in the cover. The second packet is superscribed as non-statutory covers and contains the cover containing copies of electoral roll other than the marked copy, the cover containing appointment letters of polling agents in Form 10. This needs to be sealed. The cover containing election duty certificate in Form 12B. The cover containing list of challenged votes in Form 14. This is the other cover in the packet that needs to be sealed. The cover containing list of blind and infirm electors in Form 14A and the declarations of their companions. The cover containing declarations obtained from electors as to their age and the list of such electors. The cover containing receipt book and cash, if any, on account of challenged votes. The cover containing unused and damaged paper seals, if any, this also ought to be sealed. The cover containing unused voters' slips. The cover containing unused and damaged special tags. The cover containing unused and damaged strip seals. The third packet is for miscellaneous items like the Handbook for Presiding Officers, Manual of Electronic Voting Machines, Indelible Ink Set with stoppers properly fixed with molten wax applied, Self-inking pads, Metal seal of the presiding officers, the arrow crossmark rubber stamp, Cup for setting the indelible ink. All other items, if any, go into the fourth packet. Any other papers that the returning officer has directed to be kept in a sealed packet also need to be sealed. Remember the following while packing the poll material. Each of the 5 smaller covers or packets which are placed inside the packet superscribed statutory covers are required to be individually sealed. Seal the packet superscribed statutory covers after getting its contents checked at the collection center. Let us recapitulate. First, prepare the following 4 covers to be deposited with the EVM. 17C, PRO Diary, Declarations, Visit Sheet plus 16-point report. Further, prepare a total of 4 packets at the polling station for deposition at the collection center. These are the packet superscribed statutory covers, the packet superscribed non-statutory covers, the packet containing handbook and other miscellaneous items, the packet containing all other items. To the collection centers. It is now time for Ravi Kumar and his team to reach the collection center escorted by security personnel. The EVM and the election papers should be delivered at the collection center with zero delay. The EC considers any delay with utmost concern and can take disciplinary action. Ravi needs to hand over 13 items to the officer in charge at the collection center and obtain due receipts. The duly sealed control unit and the ballot units of the voting machines inside their carrying cases. The cover containing the account of votes recorded and paper seal account or Form 17C. The cover containing the declarations of the presiding officer. The cover containing the presiding officer's diary. Visit sheet plus 16-point report. The first sealed packet of statutory covers. The second packet of non-statutory covers. The third packet of miscellaneous items. Fourth packet containing all other items, if any. Material of voting compartment. Lantern, if supplied. Waste paper basket, if supplied. Polythene bag or gunny bag to carry polling material. The job of the poll personnel is done only when all these items are successfully and satisfactorily handed over at the collection center. Recap. As soon as he got appointed, Ravi Kumar actually made a brief checklist to understand his responsibilities. His list gives us a good overview of the tasks assigned to the poll personnel. Attend all trainings to acquaint yourself with the job at hand. A day before the polls, collect all the polling materials, including EVM sets. Check them for functioning. Check all forms and stationery. Reach the polling station at least 2 hours before voting starts. Check out the arrangements at the polling station, with special focus on setting of the booth and security measures. Ensure that election laws are being adhered to. Take action if otherwise. Set up the EVM, ensuring voting secrecy. Conduct a mock poll and show the results to candidates and their agents. This is to ensure that the EVM is functioning properly. During the polls, look out for and tend to special cases like that of infirm voters or women carrying children. Follow proper procedures to handle complex situations like cases of challenged votes, tendered votes, and proxy votes. In case of major discrepancies or natural disasters, the PRO can adjourn the vote. In case there is booth capturing, close the CU of the EVM by pressing the close button. If the EC orders fresh polls, or in case of adjourned votes, conduct these polls like the original poll. Pack and seal everything properly, including EVM and all election papers in their designated cases and packets. Update the PRO diary as and when the events are happening. Deliver everything to the collection center with the zero delay policy. Do not forget the following. Clear the mock poll votes before commencing actual poll and carefully complete the mock poll certificates with signature of polling agents present. Close button should only be pressed when the poll is required to be closed and not otherwise. Correctly enter the numbers of CU, BU, seals and tags used in the polling station in the PRO's diary. Be very careful in correctly preparing Form 17C. Remember that on poll day, PRO has to inform voter turnout at his polling station to the RO through SMS or phone on every 2 hours period. Closing. Elections assign power to the people, but it's the polling personnel who actually make this empowerment possible. It's your hard work that reflects the mandate of the world's greatest democracy. So don't just do your job. Live your responsibility with pride.